And a new Pentagon memo shows transgender service members will be separated from the military unless they receive an exemption. The memo says service members with gender dysphoria are, quote, incompatible with military service, saying service by these individuals is not in the best interest of the military services and not clearly consistent with the interests of national security. Now the Pentagon has to create a procedure to identify transgender troops by March 26th and separate them by June 25th. Senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez has more on that story. Louis, how many troops could this policy affect and what impact could it have?
Diane, this has been a very difficult issue to track because the military does not track officially the number of transgender service members. However, we have asked for information. We have gotten information from a defense official that what the military is calling the diagnosis for gender dysphoria, that under that category there are about 4,200 service members in the active duty, the Guard, and the reserves. Who are currently in uniform. So we can take that as right now the initial universe of individuals who would be essentially booted out of the military. One of the things that's interesting here, Diane, is that there have been surveys in the past that have made it sound like it's 15,000. Potentially it is that high. But again, gender dysphoria, which is the category that the Pentagon is issuing in this memo, that's what they're talking about. Another thing to talk about here is that there is no grandfathering under this new memo. Back in 2017, when new policies were enacted under the Trump administration to do the same thing, individuals who were in the military were grandfathered. That is not happening this time. Another thing that's different is the exemptions. Essentially, they're very difficult to reach for these individuals. You have to guarantee that for 3 years already you're not on hormones. That's going to be very difficult to prove.
And this memo surfaced in a court case challenging Trump's rollback of the policy allowing transgender military service. So where does that case stand, and what are you watching for there?
Right, Dan. So it's very surprising that this document did not come out via a press release, but instead was an exhibit in this lawsuit that was filed by members of the military who are transgender and wanted to maintain their service profile inside the U.S. military. But the case is going to proceed, and that case was specifically against the executive order that President Trump filed back on January 27th, which essentially announced that he was rolling back the authorization for allowing U.S. military service members who were transgender to serve openly in the military. So that case is going to continue on, and it's kind of an example of what happened previously. When I did mention what happened under the first Trump administration back in 2017, when President Trump at that time announced the ban on transgender service, that was also tied up in the courts for several years, and ultimately by the time the policy came out, it really didn't go into effect and was rolled back by President Biden. So I think it's safe to assume that this case will remain in the courts and that there may be an impact at some point in the courts acting and maybe trying to prevent this from actually going into effect very, very quickly. But again, unforeseen right now as whether that is actually going to take place, but history indicates to us that it's possible.
Senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez, thank you.